When one of Hollywood's most acclaimed actors encounters a talk show host, unwilling to extend basic courtesy, it leads to one of the most uncomfortable moments ever aired on live television. Harrison Ford, best known for iconic roles like Han Solo and Indiana Jones, walked onto The View expecting a standard promotional interview. What he received instead was anything but typical. Before we get into what unfolded, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about what happened? The studio lights were glaring that morning as Ford took his seat across from the show's panel. He was no stranger to this routine. He'd done countless interviews to promote his latest projects. The View was meant to be just another appearance, a casual conversation about his work and upcoming film. But from Joy Behar's first words, it was clear this interview would take an unexpected turn. "Well, well, well, look who it is," Joy said with her trademark grin. Harrison Ford, the man who's made a living playing the same guy over and over again. The other co-hosts shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the light-hearted opening they'd discussed before the show. Just off camera, Ford's publicist felt a sense of dread. She had explicitly asked the producers to keep the discussion respectful and focused on the film. Ford's expression tensed slightly, though he remained composed. "I think you're mistaken, Joy. I've portrayed a broad range of characters over the years." "Oh, really?" she replied, leaning in with amusement. "You've got the grumpy pilot in Star Wars, the grumpy archaeologist in Indiana Jones, and the grumpy detective in Blade Runner. Sounds like a trend to me." The audience grew silent, sensing the shift. This wasn't the kind of playful exchange they expected from morning television. Ford looked toward the other hosts, hoping someone might redirect the conversation, but they sat motionless. "Joy, I came here to discuss my new movie," he said, his voice firm. "Maybe we could stick to that instead of whatever point you're trying to make." Joy, however, wasn't letting up. In fact, she seemed energized. "Point? I have no point, just telling it like it is. You've been leaning on the same characters for years. When's the last time you actually pushed yourself as an actor?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Ford had faced tough interviews before, but this felt deliberately confrontational, like it was meant to embarrass him on live TV. "You know what, Joy?" Ford said, his calm beginning to wear thin. "I've been in this industry for over 5 decades. I've worked with some of cinema's greatest directors. I've played everything from tradesmen to presidents, and I've never felt the need to defend my work to someone whose career is based on daytime gossip." The room went still except for the buzz of the cameras. Joy's cheeks flushed, but rather than ease up, she escalated. "Gossip? You think that's what this is?" she snapped. "These are real questions about your career, questions your fans deserve answers to. Or are you too sensitive to handle straightforward feedback?" Ford rose slowly, the scrape of his chair loud in the silence. "Straightforward feedback? This feels more like a setup. I've dealt with critics who actually know the craft. You don't even come close." "Sit down, Harrison," Joy shot back, her voice raised. "You don't get to come in here and intimidate me just because you're a big-name actor. This is my show and I'll ask whatever I want." "Your show?" Ford said, his voice low and deliberate. "Your show is a circus. You spend your time criticizing people who actually make something, while offering little more than negativity. At least when I act grumpy, I'm paid to do it." The rest of the panel finally stepped in, attempting to calm the situation, but the exchange had already spiraled out of control. Still, Joy refused to give up the last word. "You think you're above everyone else, don't you?" she said sharply. "You think a few successful roles give you the right to look down on others? Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Ford. Your best years are behind you and we all know it." Ford's hands tightened at his sides. For a moment, it looked like he might completely lose his composure. The tension in the studio was overwhelming. Everyone watching knew they were witnessing something that would be remembered for years. After Joy's cutting remark about Ford's career being over, the silence felt endless. The studio audience was frozen. You could almost hear their hearts beating. Ford's publicist was urgently signaling to the producers, but they were clearly stunned by what was unfolding. This had moved beyond an awkward moment. This was now a moment of live TV infamy. Ford turned his head slowly, locking eyes with Joy. The intense look so familiar from his films was now very real. This wasn't acting. This was genuine frustration. "My best days are behind me," Ford repeated, his voice low but sharp. "Let's talk about your best days, Joy. Were they when your stand-up career flopped? Or maybe when you stayed relevant by going after people who actually achieved something?" Joy's mouth opened in disbelief. She had clearly expected Ford to either brush it off or walk out, not retaliate with such precision. "How dare you," she said, clearly rattled. "You don't know anything about me or my work." "I know enough," Ford replied, standing tall over the panel like a judge delivering a ruling. "I know you built your name by criticizing others. I know you sit behind this table thinking it gives you cover to say whatever you want. And I know that happy people don't feel the need to belittle others." The other host sat frozen, visibly uncomfortable. Whoopi tried to make a light comment to ease the moment, but it died instantly as both Ford and Joy turned toward her. "You think you can read me like a book?" Joy asked, her voice shaking, not clear whether from anger or something else. "You don't know a thing about me, you arrogant has-been." "Has-been?" Ford let out a short, bitter laugh. "Joy, I made more money last year than you'll earn in a lifetime. My films are still screening across the globe, while you sit here commenting on celebrities' lives to pass the time. If I'm a has-been, what does that make you a never was?" The audience audibly reacted, some gasping, others visibly shocked. This had turned from a tense exchange into a full-blown live takedown. Joy's face was turning deep red. "You think success is all about money," she snapped. "You think landing a few big roles makes you untouchable? Success isn't luck." Ford finally raised his voice, just enough to command attention. "I spent years doing construction and minor roles before I got a break. Every role I earned came from real work, not luck. You want to talk about luck? Let's talk about landing a national TV job without any qualifications beyond being willing to insult people on camera." In the control booth, producers were wildly signaling to cut to commercial, but Joy ignored them. She had started the confrontation, and now seemed set on seeing it through, even at the cost of her own reputation. "At least I show up ready to work," she fired back. "I try to bring something fresh every day. You, on the other hand, just collect checks while sleepwalking through the same roles." Ford stepped forward. His expression was tense, and though he stayed composed, his hands trembled slightly at his sides. "Sleepwalking? Take a look around, Joy. This entire show is about talking about others because your own life doesn't interest anyone. You call this effort? You call this original? This is one of the most pointless programs on television, and you're the reason why." Joy stood abruptly, now face to face with Ford across the table. The atmosphere was thick with hostility. "Leave," she said quietly but firmly. "Get out of my studio. We don't need you. Your attitude, your disrespect, or your outdated ego." "My studio?" Ford laughed again, the sound dry and dismissive. "This isn't your studio, it's a rented stage where they shoot your chat show. You don't own anything here, except maybe that chair you've been sitting in for years, contributing little more than judgment and negativity." The camera operators were capturing some of the most intense footage daytime television had seen. This wasn't just a celebrity interview gone wrong. It was two public figures publicly dismantling one another live on air. Everyone watching understood they were witnessing something unprecedented. "You know what your real issue is, Harrison?" Joy's voice was rising with every word. "You can't handle someone finally being honest about your average career. You're not the hero from your films. You're just another aging actor who can't accept that the spotlight has moved on." The words hit hard. For a moment, Ford looked genuinely shaken, like she'd struck a nerve. But the expression of hurt faded quickly, replaced by something colder and more focused. A calm fury seemed to settle over the studio. The silence after Joy's cutting remark about no one caring anymore was heavy. The earlier flicker of pain on Ford's face shifted into something sharper. A quiet, deliberate resolve that signaled he was ready to end this exchange definitively. The audience stayed completely still, sensing a breaking point. When Ford finally spoke, his voice was low, but carried across the studio. His words came with the weight of 50 years in the business, a perspective shaped by experience. "You want to talk about what people don't care about anymore, Joy," he said. "People don't care about bitter, unoriginal voices who build their careers by attacking others. Nobody's interested in out-of-touch comedians who never had anything real to say. And no one, absolutely no one, cares about your take on my career." Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Ford raised a hand. Somehow that subtle gesture was enough to stop her mid-sentence. "I'm not done," he continued, his voice growing firmer. "You asked when I last challenged myself as an actor. Let me ask you, when was the last time you challenged yourself to be kind? When did you last use this platform to support someone, instead of tearing them down? When did you last ask if you were helping make the world better, or just adding to the negativity?" The other hosts sat in silence, unsure how to react. It was clear they were witnessing something entirely outside the bounds of a normal broadcast. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment, knowing this footage would be revisited for a long time. Joy's hands trembled, whether from anger or another emotion. It wasn't clear. "You self-righteous hypocrite," she snapped. "You really think you're above everyone else just because you've been in a few movies? You think that makes you morally superior? Moral authority?" Ford raised his eyebrows in surprise. "I've never claimed that. I'm an actor doing my job, and I try to treat people with basic decency. Apparently that's too much to expect from you." "Respect is earned," Joy shot back. "And you've earned a reputation for being difficult and impossible to work with on nearly every set." This time, Ford actually laughed calmly with something almost like amusement. "Difficult? Sure. I'm difficult when directors want me to fake it. I'm demanding when cutting corners would hurt the film. That's not ego, that's caring. I push because I respect the audience and want to give them the best I've got." He turned toward the camera for the first time. "And yes, I push back when people like you try to tear down the work others have spent their lives building. If that makes me difficult, I'll keep being difficult until people like you learn how to show some basic decency." Joy was visibly shaking now. "Decency? You're going to talk to me about decency? You've spent the last 10 minutes dragging me and my career in front of millions." "I'm responding to your attacks, Joy," Ford said firmly. "There's a difference. You started this, trying to ridicule me for your own amusement. Everything I've said is a reply to your hostility." He stepped slightly closer to the table. His voice dropped again, quiet but filled with conviction. "You pretend it's about tough questions or honest feedback. But that's not what this is. You enjoy trying to hurt people because it makes you feel important. You use your platform to tear others down because you think it makes for good content. And maybe the worst part is you don't even realize how damaged you have to be inside to take pleasure in causing others pain." Joy's expression faltered for just a moment, like Ford's words struck something deeper than she expected. But the reaction passed quickly, and she snapped back into defensive mode. "How dare you try to psychoanalyze me, you arrogant fool? You don't know anything about my life, my experiences, or my reasons. You think you can walk in here and judge me based on one exchange." "One exchange?" Ford replied, clearly stunned. "Joy, this isn't about a single conversation. This is your routine. This is what you do on this show day after day. You go after people, ridicule them, dig into their weak points, until they crack. And when someone finally pushes back, you act like you're the one being attacked." Back in the control room, the team was in full crisis mode. Producers debated whether to cut to commercial, end the segment, or call security. But no one was ready to act, frozen by the unpredictability of what was unfolding on live television. "You want to know what I really think?" Ford said, voice rising slightly, signaling his final point. "I think you're bitter. I think you resent the people who've built something meaningful with their lives, while you've spent yours sitting in that chair tearing them down, adding nothing positive to the world." Joy was visibly shaking. "Bitter? Jealous of what? Your fading career? Your series of box office flops? Your attempts to stay relevant in an industry that's moved on? No, Joy. You're envious that people actually remember my work with appreciation. You're bothered that when people think of me, they remember characters and stories that brought them happiness, excitement, and imagination. When people think of you, what comes to mind? What legacy have you created beyond criticism and negativity? The question lingered in the air, sharp and unanswerable. Joy tried to respond, but no words came out. For the first time during the segment, she was silent. Ford nodded, as though her silence proved his point. You know, I came here to talk about a film I'm proud of. Something I hoped would offer people a little escape, a little light. That's what I aim to do. Bring something uplifting, something memorable. He gestured toward the studio, frustration now evident in his tone. But you take that light and grind it down. You take what brings people joy and make it feel small, unimportant, even foolish. And why? For ratings? For attention? Or because you find satisfaction in making people uncomfortable? Joy finally responded, but her voice was barely audible. You can't speak to me like this. You don't get to come on my show and talk to me this way. Your show? Ford's tone rose slightly. This isn't a show, it's a spectacle. It's a space where people are judged and mocked, under the illusion of entertainment. It's a place where guests are cornered, not welcomed. And I won't be another target just to entertain an audience. He began walking toward the stage exit, then stopped and turned back. You want to know what's truly sad, Joy? You'll probably think you won this exchange, that this makes great TV. But all you've really done is reveal exactly who you are to the world. And it's not a flattering picture. Joy stood up, pointing at Ford as he walked away. Don't you walk off. Don't you turn your back on me while I'm speaking. Ford stopped, but didn't face her. I'm not walking away from you, Joy. I'm walking away from this toxic environment. I'm walking away from the kind of TV that makes the world worse, instead of better. I'm walking away from the belief that cruelty equals entertainment. You think you're better than everyone else? Joy shouted after him. You think you're above this show, above me, above the rest of us? Let me tell you something, Mr. Big Star. We don't need you. We never have. Ford turned one last time. This time his voice was softer, more reflective. You're right, Joy. You don't need me. But maybe you need to take a long look at yourself and ask if this is really who you want to be. Because if it is, I honestly feel sorry for you. And with that, Harrison Ford walked off the set of The View, leaving behind a stunned studio, shaken co-hosts, and one of the most unexpected live moments in daytime television history. The cameras kept rolling as Joy stood frozen, still pointing into empty space, her face a mix of anger and embarrassment. The co-hosts finally tried to regain control of the broadcast, but the damage was done. Everyone watching knew they had just seen something that would be remembered for years. What did you think of this tense exchange between Harrison Ford and Joy Behar? Have you ever seen anything like this on live television? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real behind-the-scenes celebrity moments that show you what really happens when the cameras are rolling and no one's holding back.